Should adoption be celebrated? Some of you watching this are probably thinking, why wouldn't you celebrate adoption? Others are saying, I know exactly why you shouldn't celebrate adoption. Let's talk about it. Let's start by talking about why you would celebrate adoption. People sometimes wait a long time to adopt a child. Maybe you are infertile, you haven't been able to have kids on your own, and so you are on this wait list with an adoption agency, waiting and waiting to be chosen to be the parents that get to adopt a child. And so when that day finally comes that you finally get that baby, the baby that you've been waiting for years and years perhaps, yeah, you're going to want to celebrate. You're going to want to be happy. And the people around you and your family, they're probably going to want to celebrate with you. You finally got that baby that you've been dreaming of. Another reason that people might celebrate adoption is if you are getting adopted as an older child, perhaps getting adopted from foster care, you might have been waiting for this a long time. It might be something that you as a child want. I know a foster mom who has adopted two, I believe they were preteen girls, and they had celebrations after their adoption. Both of them were very excited about getting adopted. They went out to eat afterwards. I believe there was a trip to Disney World to celebrate their adoption. So if a child is excited about their adoption, they want to be adopted and they're happy that it's happening, then obviously you're going to want to celebrate with them. But let's take a look at the darker side of adoption. There are people who hate adoption so much that they will describe it as human trafficking, which I would never go that far to say it because it's about the intent of it. With human trafficking, you are intending to harm a child that you are paying for. With adoption, you are wanting to invite this child into your home to be your child, to love and to care for throughout their whole life. There's very different intentions with it. But there have been people who have had very negative experiences with adoption. There are adoptees that have been speaking out saying, these are the things that have happened to me. They've been abused by the people who adopted them, who are supposed to be taking care of them. There have been people in the previous video that I made who have commented accusing me of stealing children because I am a foster parent and I have adopted two children from foster care. And so you see that kind of hurt, and I'm not angry at the people for commenting what they commented, even though I know I didn't steal the children, because as a foster parent, you don't take the children away from the parents. That's someone else's job, and there's always a reason for it. They don't just take kids away from homes for no reason at all. There's always a reason. Some parents have said they did not get enough chances, enough opportunities to try to get their kids back that were taken from them, and then they were later adopted, and there's a lot of pain and sadness and regret from the parents. And there can be a lot of pain and sadness and regret with a lot of people involved in the process. Now, a little background about myself and my husband. We used to be foster parents, and we became foster parents not with the goal of adopting children, but with the goal of simply giving children a safe space for as long as they need it. And it just so happened that two of the kids that we fostered needed to eventually be adopted, and so we did adopt them. But I was not sure about celebrating it. For the longest time, I really thought, if this adoption actually happens, great, I'm gonna be grateful that it's happened, but it's not anything to really rejoice about. The reason why is because adoption always comes with loss. And for kids in foster care, it might come with more loss than, say, a newborn baby who's immediately placed into adoption. Because with foster kids, they have some kind of memory or knowledge, for the most part, of their birth family. And so they are losing their birth family in a way. And even if it's an open adoption, even if there's still going to be visits, even if there's still going to be updates in the life, it is still a loss. It's a loss for the children, and it's a loss for the biological family as well. Now, what if a mother chooses to place her child up for adoption right when she's given birth? If the baby is taken right from the mother and handed into the arms of the adoptive parents, does that mean that there's no loss for the baby because the baby really never got to know his or her mother? No. the baby did get to know their mother because the baby grew inside that mother for 9-ish months. And so it's going to be strange for the baby to not have that connection, to not be immediately placed into the arms of their mother, but to be placed in the arms of an adoptive family instead. The mother also will experience loss, even if she did not want this baby at all. She is still losing a small piece of herself. And so it is hard and it is sad. And so adoption can be a wonderful, beautiful thing, but it does come with an element of sadness. It does come with loss, no matter how the adoption takes place. I was very sad for my children when their parents signed away their rights. I knew at that point that it needed to happen and it was in their best interest for that to happen, but it was still a sad thing. Here's a video that I recorded a while back when one of the parents had signed away their rights, and I was very sad.
I'm sad. So my foster sons, their biological mom recently signed away her rights. And for some foster parents, that's actually a kind of happy, exciting time because they're like, yay, now this means I can adopt these kids that I've, loved and cared for as my own. And I get that, but look at what your kids have lost. and I'm thinking about, what my foster sons have lost now that their mom has signed away her rights. And it just makes me so sad. And no hate to the mom because she's been through so much in her life. And, she's doing what she believes is best for the boys. But it's still sad what they're losing, and it's sad what their mom has been through. And the whole situation is just really sad. And there's well, thank goodness that they're young. They're young where they still don't really understand. If they were older, it would be so much sadder and harder for them, I think. But this is one thing they don't warn you about when you take classes to become a foster parent, is how every single step of the journey is just heartbreaking. The whole journey is so heartbreaking and it's so sad. And I just hate that there's a need for foster parents. I hate that there are children in foster care. I hate that there are children who are in very unfortunate circumstances. And I hate that there are adults who are dealing with very unfortunate circumstances as well. It's just sad. It's really sad. And so sometimes you see these beautiful stories of foster care and adoption and everything is like butterflies and rainbows. And I just want to say it's not butterflies and rainbows. It's really, really hard and it's really, really sad. But it's worth it. It's about loving the kids. It's about being there for them and doing what's best for them. So at the end of the day, all I can do is love those boys as much as I can. And that's what being a foster parent is all about.
In an ideal world, adoption would never be necessary. There would be no unwanted pregnancies. There would be no neglected children, because everyone who wants children would have children and everyone who doesn't want children would not have children. Unfortunately, we don't live in that ideal world. And so adoption, while it is imperfect, it strives to sort of help. It tries to help. It tries to help families. It tries to help kids, to put them in a safe and a loving environment. It's tragic when adoption causes more trauma. It's not supposed to create more trauma. Unfortunately, that does happen, and we do have to acknowledge that, and we have to realize that there are a lot of problems in the foster care and adoption world. There is corruption. We don't want to sweep that under the rug. We want to acknowledge that, and we want the corruption to end. But a lot of times you hear the horror stories, you hear the worst of the worst, but there are so many beautiful, wonderful stories that happen through adoption. There are so many good parents out there, so many incredible children whose lives are changed for the better because of adoption. So I urge you to not focus on all the negative and remember that there are positives as well. Now, when we found out the adoption date for our sons, which was last December, so just a few months ago, actually, I was excited because I was like, finally, it's been a long time coming. These kids need stability. They need to be our kids for real, legally, because they've already been my children in my heart. So now I need the government to say they're your kids. And so many friends and family were very excited for us. And a friend contacted me saying that she wanted to host a party for us. She wanted to, get a cake for us, get some punch, and have a little reception after the adoption so that everyone could come together and celebrate. And even though I had originally thought I didn't want to celebrate the adoption because there's loss, there's sadness, it's confusing for our children, I eventually said, yeah, let's do it. Let's celebrate. And it was an opportunity for my children to see some of their friends that they hadn't seen it in a while because we had recently moved away from there. And so we were able to go back because the adoption was in our old city where we had previously lived. Sorry, my dog kept barking at me while I was trying to make this video. The adoption was in our old city where we had previously lived. And so we were able to come back and then see some people that we hadn't seen in a few months. And it was just really great. Now, my adopted sons were very confused about what adoption actually meant when we were adopting them in December. At that point, they were age 5 and 3, almost 4. And so I tried to explain to them using a story from the Bible, good Old Testament Moses, right? Moses was floating down a river and the Egyptian princess found him and adopted him. So I told that story to my kids and I said, you're going to be adopted too. And my older one said, "You're going to put me in a basket and float me down the river?" I assured him that that was not the case, but maybe it's not the best story to tell when you're trying to explain adoption to children. Now, I don't believe that adoption should be kept a secret from a child. I think you should let them know that they are adopted. I think it can be very traumatizing if it is kept a secret and then told to them, later in life because they have to find out because of some kind of illness they have or something like that. Just be open and honest with your children about this. Now, there are sometimes details of their story that you might not want to tell them. For example, you don't want to sit down and explain to a 5-year-old the in-depth details of the neglect and abuse that he experienced, for example. So you had to do things in an age-appropriate way. But as they get older, you continue to add on to it and you continue to tell them more. And by the time they're 18, they need to know every detail. Unless they specifically say, you know what, I don't want to know. I don't want you to tell me. In which case, then you don't have to tell them, I guess. I also truly believe that if an adoption can be kept open, that you should keep it open. Now, unfortunately, my adopted son's biological father is not currently interested in maintaining a relationship, but if that changes, we will explore options at that point. But their biological mother is very interested in maintaining a relationship. We still have visits with her. I still send her pictures. I let her know what's going on in their lives. And I think that's what adoption should be. It shouldn't be completely getting rid of the biological family, forgetting about them, covering them up, and that's it, they're gone. No, you have to acknowledge the child's biological family as well. They're important. Even if they did cause trauma, they still need to be acknowledged. I love our adopted sons just as much as I love my biological children. There's no difference in love. I know some people think adoptive parents can't love their adopted children as much as their biological children. I don't know. My heart feels pretty full with all my children, and I don't love one more than the other. They are all very equally loved in this family. All in all, answering the whole question, should adoption be celebrated? I think it depends on the case-by-case basis, especially if you've got an older child from foster care who's getting adopted and they're excited about it. Let them celebrate it because they want to celebrate it. Now, if a child is getting adopted from foster care but they're not too excited about it, don't force them to be happy. Don't force them to celebrate it. Please share your thoughts about adoption in the comments below, but remember to be respectful and understand that some people had gone through trauma related to adoption.